What's up, Duval? It's your favorite Jag, Bucky Brooks, and this is Bleav in Jaguars, a podcast dedicated to everything Jacksonville Jaguars. And today we're going to obviously talk about the hit heard around the world, the hit on Trevor Lawrence that really changed everything that we thought we knew about player safety and big hits in games. And we'll talk about the Jaguars being officially eliminated from postseason consideration. Before we get into those conversations, let's send a shout out to our sponsor, Bet Online. Continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, Bet Online provides you with all the action and the ability to watch games as it happens. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football to NBA, college basketball, NHL to UFC, head to Bet Online today, and don't forget to use promo code Bleav, BLEAV, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, the game starts here. Guys, and we know about the game starting and the game ending, and I can say this, the Jaguars game seemingly ended when Trevor Lawrence was, look, man, it was a dirty play by Al-Shaair and what he did to knock Trevor Lawrence out. If you didn't have a chance to watch the replay, I can quickly recap it. Trevor Lawrence flees the pocket, is running to his left. He makes a slide to get down and then is absolutely clobbered right in the head. Dirty hit by a Texans defender. Immediately knocks Trevor out. Trevor suffers a concussion, is out for the game, and does a return to action. A brief melee ensues, a little skirmish right on the Jaguar sideline. They eventually separate the players. Kick out a Texans player. It leads to another mini skirmish later, but then the game goes on. And what I can say about the hit and the way that it happened, one, at a time when the NFL is doing everything to protect quarterbacks, it's the kind of hit that you just don't want to see, you can't allow, and it has been outlawed. And so you can't hit the quarterback like that, particularly when they give themselves up. The fact that the hit was as violent as it was and it knocked Trevor out, to me, the 3-game suspension that Al-Shaair received was warranted. I mean, you can't knock out a franchise quarterback. You can't knock out one of the quarterbacks that is the face of the league and not suffer consequences. And for me, it was distasteful. It was dirty. It goes against all the things that we talked about, player safety in terms of cleaning up the game and all of that. So from a legislative standpoint, look, man, 3 games to me was the sweet spot. I expected 2 games. 3 games is one more. But I would say part of the reason this suspension was longer is because the player has been a repeat offender. He had some skirmishes and incidents early in the season. So to me, this was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. That's why he got the extra game. From a Jaguar standpoint, man, it is tough to see your franchise quarterback hit like that and for him to go down and be knocked out of the game. If you were on the field, if you were at the game and you had a chance to see it, you would understand how violent it was. Trevor Lawrence was laying there hands up in really a scary position because he's completely knocked out cold. And for someone who is really trying to give themselves up, who's already playing through an injury, to slide and say, hey, I'm getting what I can. I'm going down. I've given myself up, to get hit like he was hit, man, there's no place for it. On the other side, I've heard the arguments for the Texans saying that, it's unprecedented. Like the league has not been fair. They should understand that this guy is a model citizen and those things. All that stuff can be great. But if it happens between the lines, you are what you put on tape. And what he's put on tape has been some egregious plays when it comes to player safety, some egregious plays when it comes to being borderline dirty with hits and some of the other stuff that has been a part of his on-field resume. And look, man, you can talk about his intent, but the intent is one thing. The actions are another, and you have to punish people for their actions. I will say that I tweeted something early in the week when I talked about the response and the disappointment in the Jaguars' response, just in relation to what I know would have taken place in other teams in other cities. If you knock out a franchise quarterback in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson, or Buffalo with Josh Allen, or Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes, it changes the tenor of the game, and that game becomes testy, it becomes contentious, it becomes acrimonious. I'm not saying it or advocating that like a fight breaks out, but it certainly would change the tenor of the game. Like there's a level of respect that you have for your quarterback and within a brotherhood, and you make sure that when those things happen, all things go to what I've learned in chess. In chess, everything is about protecting the king. So you want to protect the king at all costs. You want to make sure that you protect him. And Trevor Lawrence is the king when we think about this franchise. You want to protect him. You want to make sure that no one uh, takes advantage of him. No one disrespects him because as the king, as the franchise quarterback, he is everything to the franchise. And even though we all are a part of a team, the quarterback is a little different, whether we acknowledge it or not. He is. That's where they get what it is. So when those things happen, there should have been immediate uptick in intensity, energy, and physicality. Defensively, everything should have been about ratcheting it up. It becomes a physical football game. It becomes a more physical game. And anytime you have an opportunity to take a shot on their quarterback, you do so. It's no different than in baseball when you hit a batter. You know that when your side goes up to bat, somebody's going to get plunked. That's just the way it goes. In hockey, if someone knocks the star down, if someone hits the star with a high check, then you know the goons are coming out of the next line change, and they're going to enact a little vigilante justice to make sure that you know and future opponents know that our star player is off limits when it comes to the extra excessive physicality. I was a little disappointed that I didn't see more of that from the Jaguars, and even more disappointed that when you heard the post-game pressers from the players and they mentioned fines and money and all those other things, those things should never be considerations when we're part of the team and you're part of the brotherhood. As a member of the team and as a member of what we call the brotherhood, everything is about protecting your brother to your right and to your left. When your quarterback gets knocked out like that, it is on you to make sure that you protect him and that you make sure that no one disrespects him or disrespects the team like that. That's where my frustration stems from because, look, man, at the end of the game, at the end of the day, this game that we love, yes, it's a competitive game. It is a chess match between the offensive and defensive strategists, but it's also blood sport. And sometimes it becomes a mano fight to impose your will on the opponent. And when the Jaguars didn't match that, to me, it could speak to the culture. It could speak to the environment. It could speak to not really understanding how we always have to protect one another. And I think it's a teachable moment and a learning experience when it comes to how we want to get respect and give respect going forward. To me, it was a disrespectful act. And I don't know if they ever would have done that to another team like that. And I think one of the things that we have to do when we go into the offseason, we have to do some soul searching in terms of our identity, who we are, what we represent, and how we're going to handle those that disrespect us between the lines. Not advocating fighting, but I am advocating protecting your teammates and doing whatever is necessary to make sure that those teams, those opponents that take shots on your quarterback, never see fit to take shots on the quarterback again. We'll live and learn. We'll see what it looks like going forward. But to me, from a cultural standpoint, it's something that has to change in terms of making sure that we're always respected. And sometimes the only way you get respect is you have to earn it. The Jaguars have to earn that level of respect from their opponents. That's it. Going forward, it should be on against the Houston Texans from here out. Now that we know that the lines have been drawn in the sand and we know that this is a bitter rivalry, we have to treat it as such. It should become contentious, combative, even acrimonious, much like the rivalry with the Tennessee Titans has been. I think the Houston Texans are next on deck. It should be an all-in-out battle royal every time we square off. It should be extra physical. It should be intense. It should be personal, all of those things. And if you're a Jags fan, if you're a part of the Jaguars organization, from here going forward, every time you see that team, whether they're in their battle red uniforms or whatever, it's on. And I would anticipate that kind of being a focal point going forward, that every time we see this team, They know what it is. We know what it is. And when we square it off, not that it's quote unquote to the death, but it should have that tenor. It should feel like that when we play them. It should have a playoff energy and atmosphere to the game. Just because, look, man, one of the lowest things and one of the dirtiest things you can do is take a pot shot and knock out a quarterback. From here on out, we have to make sure that we match and exceed their physicality and toughness. Just because that's just the way this game is, and this way this game is always going to be. On another note, Jaguars were officially eliminated. The loss put them outside of the playoff picture. They are officially eliminated when the Broncos were able to win on Monday night. It ended and squashed all of the hopes of the team making the postseason. So here we are at 2-10, 5 games remaining on the schedule, and trying to figure out how do you handle these last 5 games. Given the situation, the number one decision that you have to make is on Trevor Lawrence. So Trevor Lawrence is coming off a shoulder injury. He's coming off a concussion. He's in protocol. Who knows when he'll be clear from protocol? But to me, man, it's about go ahead and sitting Trevor Lawrence down. He's dealing with a shoulder injury that may or may not require surgery. If he does require surgery, why not start the process now so he can be back when the offseason is fully underway? He is the most important player on the team as the quarterback. You know, after going through this year with Mac Jones at quarterback, you know that you need Trevor Lawrence to be available because the talent disparity between the franchise quarterback and the backup is significant. The confidence, the Bleav in the franchise quarterback compared to the backup, significant. Because of those things, you want to ensure that going into 2025, you have Trevor Lawrence locked and loaded, healthy and fresh and ready to go. This season is this season, but him coming back, him playing, it is not going to curry any favor for you in the locker room because guess what? We can try and win, but we don't have a chance if the quarterback is injured, doesn't play well, or risks further injury when he comes in already beat up. Put him on ice, move him away. We should be done. We shouldn't see Trevor Lawrence until 2025. That means Mac Jones or CJ Beathard should get the snaps the last part of the season to just see what they can do, how they can ignite this offense, what their limitations are, etc. This is the time that you already cast your eye towards 2025 to evaluate and see who are the guys that deserve to be here going forward. Who are the core members of the team? Who are the guys that we know they're going to be here? We want to build around them. We want to make sure that even though we had to take a step back this year, no more steps going backwards, we're going forwards. And we got to go forwards with the right people, the right personnel, the right character guys, the right worker bees, and more importantly, the right football players. To do that, you got to evaluate the roster. And the only way you can evaluate the roster, you got to put everybody on the field. Not saying that it's over and that you're tanking games, but the young guys have to play because we need to see them in real action to be able to have a better assessment for who they are, what they're going to do, and what they could do at a higher level. Even though you're saying that, it's hard to tell a group of older guys like, hey, man, we're waving the white flag. We're just going to play the young guys and do those things. But the reality is they know what it is. They know what's coming. They know what's on the horizon. And you can tell them, hey, man, if there are changes to be made, everyone is acceptable to being blown out. So you better put your best foot forward over the next 5 games to make sure that whatever you put on tape, you feel great about. Because the first thing that happens, whether you make a coaching change, a GM change or not, everyone looks at the most recent films as they're beginning to compile their roster and make notes on the players that are already in-house. That's why it's important that you finish the season the right way to ensure that you're not on one of those vulnerability lists, those vulnerable lists where you can be easily removed and replaced by someone who's a little scrappier, a little grittier, a little tougher, a little more locked in when it comes to doing what you're being asked to do. As I think about like a look towards 2025 and where the Jaguars could be right now, Jaguars are near the top of the board when it comes to the draft. They don't hold the number 1 overall seed. I think that goes to the Giants just because of the way their schedule plays out and those things. Regardless, you're going to have another pick within the top 5, and you have to figure out where can you get a blue chip player, who is the best blue chip player to get, and how do we plug and play him in a position where he is going to have immediate success. When I look at where we are, I I think it's really intriguing because I look offensively. We're talking about offense first. Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby, solid. Production fell off, but I don't know if it was them, if it was the offensive line. Two solid players. When I think about the wide receiver position, Christian Kirk is hurt. Gabe Davis is hurt. But what you're seeing from BTJ, what you're seeing from Parker Washington has intrigued you when they've had more opportunities to touch the ball. Evan Ingram has been a stud. Brenton Strange has shown flashes. Offensively, you probably feel pretty good about what you have on the perimeter. Offensive line, to me, you got to look at and try and figure out what are the other combinations that we can put in place. You sign Walker Little, so he's going to be there for the next 2, 3, 4 years. You have Anton Harrison, another first-round pick. They should be able to grow together as bookends. Inside, got to figure out what we're going to do on the inside. Mitch Morris, Brandon Sheriff, Ezra Cleveland was re-signed. You expect him to be there. But here, center, right guard, like what are we going to do to ensure that we can play at a high level at the point of attack? Brandon Sheriff, I would say, probably need to move on, probably need to find a young replacement, someone that can make an immediate impact right away. Center is fine. Got one, solid one. You can play with them or whatever. Defensively, Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen, no questions about them. They are chiefly responsible for all the sacks that we're getting on defense. They've played well. They've expanded their games. They've added tools to the toolbox, particularly Trayvon Walker. He has become a more complete and destructive force at the point of attack. Still has a ways to go, but, man, you can already see the splash plays that he routinely makes. Rest of the front line, man, I don't even know what to say about them because this has been a revolving door, not really productive, trying to figure out who can play and where they can play at. Mason Smith has been getting time in recent weeks, and you hope that he can blossom and the light comes on in year two. Devon Hamilton's been fine. You always kind of want more, but he's been fine. You wish he could be a little more disruptive and destructive at the point of attack. That's just not who he is. Second level, Foye Oluokun continues to be the tackling machine. Devin Lloyd has struggled to me with his instincts between the tackles, kind of understanding what's coming at him. You just continue to hope that the light will come on. But, at some point, man, first-round pick has to make plays and make plays consistently because you count on him to be a blue-chip player. One of the best players and the biggest surprises, Ventrell Miller, has been a great surprise. Energy, effort, toughness, leadership skills, vocal, just a great communicator, holds people accountable, has natural leadership ability. At some point, it's going to get real interesting in terms of Miller because he's good enough to start, but who would he remove if you take someone out the lineup? Those are one of the questions that you have to handle over the course of the offseason. Secondary, I would say probably one of the bigger disappointments that the secondary didn't rise to the occasion. Just thought with the coaching, with the scheme, that they would kind of be pivotal players. And I can't say that anyone has had a standout year. The corners, Ronald Darby has been victimized and picked on over and over and over again. Tyson Campbell's been in and out of the lineup with various injuries. Buster Brown has shown promise at times, but he's not been on the field consistently enough to kind of carve out a role, even though I would say that he has been a nice discovery and a nice find. In the back end, Andre Cisco, Darnell Savage, to me, both of them have been disappointments. Cisco, because of his frequent ability to attempt to make plays on hunches and those things, and he finds himself routinely out of position. For Savage, it's the combination of the cover skills, the tackling hasn't been great. There've been some bust in the back end, not just him, but for others. And so it's all tied together. And what you get is a team that hasn't played well, has only won 2 games. And part of the reason they only won in 2 games because of all the things that are listed, there's a common thing of a lack of attention to detail. When you don't pay attention to detail, you don't have the discipline to do the right things, you lose games. And the lack of attention to detail shows up in these games because ball security in key moments, going in Miami, fumbling, going into the end zone, you have 2 hands on the ball. It never happens. You think about the blown assignments, the repeated blown assignments and poor alignments of the guys, not understanding how to line up and go, how to line up and get ready to play, all of those things. And so it's frustrating to kind of see all of that play out. And as this team continues to grow, we got to figure out how to do those things. Now, the $1,000,000 question that everyone wants to know, or everyone will ask over the next 5 weeks, what's up with the GM? What's up with the coach? Don't know. Here's what I will say. If they have an opportunity to stay the course and work the plan, I think the biggest thing that they will have to answer, all the things that you did last year following the collapse of 2023, the entire offseason was about toughness and attention to detail, longer practices, more physical training camp. Everyone talked about how tough it was, but yet the result hasn't been exactly what you hoped for. What do you do next time in the offseason? How do you sell that same story? Do you sell a different story to your team to get them to come into camp and get them to get off to a fast start? I'm just so curious and fascinated by that. What changes from a messaging standpoint to help this team play better? What changes from a personnel standpoint to help this team get better? Do you change the way you prioritize certain positions on the roster? Are you now more of a line of scrimmage guy as opposed to a skill guy? All of those things impact how the Bears will be. I mean, how the Jags will be rebuilt and repaired. Final thing I will say this is, look, just the overall energy around the organization and the stuff has certainly not been good. This is a team that has lost a lot over the last decade plus, and it's frustrating to be a fan of the team when you know that there's talent, enough talent to win games. I think the one thing that we have to do, or this team has to do to get over the top, toughness has to be emphasized, and not just physical toughness, mental toughness. Because for whatever reason, mentally, we have not been able to hold onto the rope when things get bad. And the great teams have a grittiness and a resilience that sustains them through these rough patches. And right now, I can't confidently say that we're tough enough to endure and bounce back from these things. And so that is something that head coach, general manager, every player, they will have to have conversations about, and they will have to come up with a plan to show everyone how they're going to get back to the next level. So I can't wait to see what that looks like. Can't wait to see how it plays out. But we're continuing to talk about the Jags, look at the Jags, preview what is ahead for the Jaguars. We'll tape another podcast later in the week, and we'll talk about what's on the horizon, how the Jaguars can use these last 5 games to put themselves in a position to build some confidence heading into 2025. Until then, I'm Bucky Brooks. This is Bleav in Jags. Make sure you check out all the cool stuff that we have on the Bleav Network, YouTube, Fubo. Check it out. See what we got. See what some of my colleagues have got. I'm envious because some of my colleagues are following potential playoff teams, and so they're going to be able to have some more gas. I will surely have to turn my eyes towards the draft and talk about some of the prospects that could help the Jags and others in 2025. Until next time, I'm Bucky Brooks. This is Bleav in Jaguars. I'm out.